The door to the guest room was closed. That was already strange, we never closed it. But it was 3:12 a.m. and something, I don't know what, just told me to check. Not a sound, not even breathing. But I swear to you, I felt something in the air. Like guilt had a temperature. I didn't barge in. I didn't knock. I just opened the door. And I saw my wife lying there, fully dressed, in the dark, with her phone screen glowing in her face. But she wasn't texting. She was listening. To him. His voice was low, soft, and I recognized it immediately, because it wasn't the first time I'd heard it echoing off her Bluetooth speaker when she thought I was out running errands. She jumped like she got caught stealing, pulled the blanket over her head, said, "It's just a podcast." I said nothing. I just looked at her, and I'll never forget what she said next. "Don't start. Don't start." As if I was the one interrupting something sacred. As if I was the one ruining the moment. I turned around and walked back to our bedroom. She didn't follow. She didn't explain. I don't even think she paused the call. She stayed in the guest room the rest of the night. The next morning, the sheets in our bed were still tucked in on her side, untouched. Like she'd never even tried to lie. You know that moment when something small breaks inside you? Not loud, not messy, just a quiet crack in your chest. That was the moment for me. Because I realized something brutal. She wasn't cheating on me in secret. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to see it. To feel replaceable. So I made a silent decision right there. Brushing my teeth the next morning, staring at my own reflection like a stranger. I wouldn't fight. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't even ask who he was. I'd just wait for the perfect moment, then walk out without looking back. Because if she wanted to feel powerful, she was about to learn how silence can wreck someone more than screaming ever could. The universe is funny. It doesn't always scream when it gives you a sign. Sometimes it just hands you a quiet little accident wrapped in Wi-Fi and timing. That's exactly what happened 2 nights after I found her whisper laughing in the dark to another man. I hadn't mentioned it. I hadn't brought it up. She stayed in the guest room again the next night, like it was completely normal. No fight. No apology. Just distance. She acted like I was the dramatic one for noticing. That morning she made toast like nothing was broken. Said, "You're quiet." And I just nodded. But that Friday night, the universe stepped in. She was curled up on the couch with a glass of wine in one hand and her phone in the other. I was in the kitchen, microwaving leftovers like a sad little sitcom character. The TV was paused on some movie she pretended to like for my sake, but hadn't paid attention to in weeks. And then, mid-sip, mid-scroll, mid-silence, it happened. Her phone auto-connected to the living room TV. And just like that, the screen flashed from the paused movie to a video. A bedroom. Dim lighting. A man's voice, low, intimate, definitely not mine, saying, "You know I hate when you wear clothes to bed." She fumbled like she'd just touched a live wire. The wine glass fell from her hand and shattered across the floor. I stood still, fork halfway to my mouth. She dove for the remote like a drowning person reaching for air. But it was too late. I'd seen it. Heard it. The sheets in the video weren't ours. But the voice? That was him. I didn't say a word. She froze, remote clutched in both hands, staring at me like I was a threat. But I wasn't yelling. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't anything. Just watching. And I think that scared her more than any explosion would have. "I didn't mean to," she started, but cut herself off. Because what was she gonna say? She didn't mean to cheat. Didn't mean to broadcast her affair in 1080p surround sound. I walked past the glass on the floor. Past her. Past the remote still trembling in her hand. I grabbed my coat. She called after me. "Lyle, where are you going?" I stopped, hand on the doorknob. And I said, calmly, without even looking at her, "Somewhere I don't have to compete with Bluetooth." Then I walked out. No yelling. No arguing. She crossed the line, and I just kept walking. She thought she'd get away with it. She thought I'd cry, beg, fight. But she didn't understand that silence can echo louder than rage. And the echo was only just beginning. I didn't go far that night. I didn't run to a hotel or a friend's place because, honestly, I don't really have friends who'd pick up at midnight. I just drove, aimlessly, through neighborhoods where nobody knew me, past 24-hour diners glowing like sad little beacons, until eventually I ended up at my cousin Everett's apartment. Everett is one of those quiet, socially allergic types who never asks questions, which made him the perfect person to show up on unannounced at 1 a.m. I knocked. He opened the door in socks and a cereal-stained t-shirt, raised an eyebrow, and just said, "Yeah, okay, like he'd been expecting me all along. I crashed on his couch, fully dressed, staring at the popcorn ceiling as my brain replayed the TV incident on a loop. Her face draining of color, the video flickering across the screen, the sound of the man's voice echoing through our living room like a confession. I kept hearing her broken wine glass, like the universe punctuating the moment with a final crack. I barely slept, maybe 20 minutes total, until the sky started turning that washed-out blue that always shows up before sunrise. I thought she might text. I thought she might call. She didn't. Not a word. Not even a fake apology. But at exactly 6:03 a.m., someone started pounding on the apartment door like they were trying to break inside. I sat up, heart punching my ribs, because part of me just knew it was her. Of course she'd wait until morning to have a meltdown. That was her specialty, timing everything for maximum emotional effect. I actually froze, halfway off the couch, because I had no idea what I'd say to her if she saw me. I didn't have some dramatic speech prepared. I didn't even have my shoes on. Before I could decide whether to hide in the bathroom like some pathetic sitcom husband, Everett shuffled out of his room looking like a sleep-deprived ghost and opened the door. And there she was, Hallie, standing in gray sweatpants, hair a mess, eyes red, mascara smeared like she'd cried in the car. She pushed past Everett without asking, saying, "Where is he? Everett, where is he?" Everett blinked, pointed at the couch, completely confused but too polite to shut the door in her face. I felt myself shrinking, shoulders curling inward, wishing I could disappear into the couch cushions. She spotted me instantly, and her voice cracked into this raw, trembling sound that didn't match the cold stone version of her from the night before. "Lyle, please come home. You misunderstood everything." Misunderstood. That word slid out of her mouth like it had never been wrong in its life. I swallowed hard, feeling that familiar sting of humiliation because even now, she thought she could rewrite reality. She took a step toward me, hands shaking, saying, "It's not what you think. I swear it's not what you think." But the thing is, she didn't know the worst part yet, that the video on the TV wasn't the most damning thing. Not by a long shot. And as she stood there in Everett's doorway at 6 in the morning demanding I come back, she had no idea that I'd already seen the messages she didn't mean to back up. She had no idea that the truth I was holding on to would destroy every lie she thought she'd prepared. And I wasn't ready to tell her. Not yet. Because the way she broke last night, that was nothing compared to what was coming. "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly, barely above a whisper. And her face, God, her face fell in a way I'd never seen before, not even during our worst fights. She finally felt the weight of the silence I'd chosen. She finally realized I wasn't here to negotiate. I was here because I was already halfway gone, and she still hadn't understood why. Not yet. She didn't cry the way I expected. There were no loud sobs, no dramatic collapse into my arms. Instead, she stood in Everett's living room trembling like her skin was about to split open, eyes darting around as if looking for a script someone forgot to hand her. She said my name 4 different times in 4 different tones, soft, angry, desperate, confused. But none of it worked. I just stood there, arms crossed, biting my tongue so hard it hurt. I could have yelled. I could have asked, "Who's the guy in the video?" I could have listed every lie she'd told me since February, right down to the stupid fake book club meetings she said she was attending. But I didn't. Not yet. I wanted to see what she would do without a prompt. What excuse she'd reach for without knowing how much I knew. Hallie sat down on Everett's armchair like it was hers, rubbed her temples, and whispered. Everything got blown out of proportion. "It's not like that. We were talking. I swear, it's not physical." And for a second, I just stared at her, wondering how someone could lie with that much confidence while her mascara was still crusted from tears shed over another man. She kept talking, babbling, really, about stress, distance, loneliness, emotional confusion. Like our marriage was a spreadsheet that needed balancing. I almost laughed. Almost. But then she said something that changed everything. "He told me no one would find out. He said his wife never checks his phone." That was the moment the puzzle snapped into place. His wife. She hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been helping him cheat on someone else. That's when I let it slip. Guess she checked this time. Hallie blinked, slow and stupid. "What?" I leaned forward just enough to watch her pupils shrink. I said, "Maybe his wife checked. Maybe she found out. Maybe that's why the video got sent to your email." The one linked to our TV. She went completely still. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. I watched her brain crash in real time. And then came the panic. "You're lying," she said, too fast. "He wouldn't," he told me. "He promised. He wouldn't be that stupid." I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd saved, messages from his wife. A woman I didn't even know existed until 12 hours ago. She'd found me on Instagram. Said she pieced it all together after seeing Hallie's name pop up one too many times. Said she had evidence. Said she was tired of living in the dark. I didn't answer her right away, but I didn't need to. She sent the video anyway. She wanted me to see. I didn't even show Hallie the messages. Just the contact name. The first line of the DM. "I think your wife and my husband are sleeping together." Hallie turned gray. Not pale. Not white. Gray. She stood up too quickly, stumbled, and grabbed the edge of the couch to steady herself. Then she did the one thing I didn't expect. She pulled out her phone and called him. Put it on speaker. It rang twice. Then went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. Again. And again. Each time, her breathing got shallower. Her hands shook harder. Her voice cracked as she mumbled his name under her breath like a curse and a prayer at the same time. That's when I realized something chilling. She wasn't panicking because she'd hurt me. She was panicking because he was gone. She was afraid she'd been used. That maybe, just maybe, he'd deleted her the second things got messy. And I just stood there, watching it all unfold. The same way she watched me vanish from our marriage without blinking. Now she was the one left in the dark. And it was only the beginning. She left Everett's place in silence. No hugs. No final look. She didn't even say goodbye. Just quietly slipped out the door like a ghost who suddenly realized she was haunting the wrong house. I didn't chase after her. I didn't ask where she was going. I just sat on the edge of the couch for what felt like an hour, barely breathing, staring at the spot where she'd panicked into her phone like a gambler watching her last chips get swept off the table. Everett, to his credit, didn't ask a single question. He made coffee, nodded at me, and went back into his room. That's why I'd gone there. No judgment. No advice. Just space. But the truth was, I couldn't sit still. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what I'd heard. And definitely not after what I knew was coming next. At 9:27 a.m., my phone buzzed. I knew who it was before I even looked. Her name was Julia, the wife of the man Hallie had been sneaking around with. We'd messaged back and forth a little the night before, just enough to establish that we were both drowning in the same ocean. But this time, she asked something unexpected. "Can we meet? Somewhere neutral. I have something you should see." At first, I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep digging. Part of me thought I'd seen enough. I mean, what else was there to know? But another part of me, the part that had sat through every lie with a smile, every fake apology with hope, needed to look this ugliness in the face. Needed to understand the full scale of what had been done to me. We met in a tiny coffee shop on the far side of town. It was almost empty. She was already there when I arrived, mid-30s, plain blue hoodie, no makeup, hair in a loose braid. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I realized I probably looked the same. She didn't stand when I walked up, just gestured to the seat across from her like we were two exhausted coworkers about to go over disaster reports. She slid a manila folder across the table. "I printed everything," she said flatly. I opened it. Dozens of pages. Screenshots, emails, message threads, a hotel receipt. All from the past 6 months. The first message was dated the week Hallie had started saying she needed more space. I flipped through them in silence. Most of it I expected. But then I reached the final few pages, and my stomach dropped. Julia noticed. She leaned forward. "You didn't know about the weekend in Boston, did you?" I shook my head slowly. They hadn't just been cheating in secret. They'd taken trips. Stolen whole weekends while pretending to visit family or attend conferences. The Boston trip was booked under a fake name, but the credit card was his. The photos were all time-stamped. Her in his lap. Him holding her hand on a hotel balcony. Both of them smiling like they hadn't broken 2 marriages on the way there. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It wasn't even the lies. It was the note Julia had found tucked inside one of his old travel bags. A handwritten letter. Addressed to Hallie. "One day we won't have to sneak around. One day, it'll just be us. Be patient. He's weak. He'll crack soon. He's weak." That's what she'd let him write about me. And from the look of it, she hadn't argued. She'd probably smiled. Maybe even agreed. Julia sipped her coffee like it was water. I figured you had a right to know. I'm divorcing him. Papers are already drafted. I nodded slowly, still staring at the handwriting. The way he curled his letters. The tiny heart she had drawn in the corner of the page, like a teenager passing notes in class. But I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. Something colder was moving through me now. Not rage, not grief, but resolve. Hallie had lied. Betrayed. Humiliated. But she'd also underestimated me. She thought I'd shatter. Thought I'd scream, or beg, or compete. But what she didn't realize was that I'd already decided how this would end. Not with a fight. Not with a breakdown. With a door closing. And this time, it would be me on the other side. I didn't rush. I didn't pack in a fury or storm through the house like some wounded soap opera husband. No, I was calm. I was surgical, quiet as a breath. I went home while I knew she was at work, if she even still called it that, and I took my time. I walked into that house like it was already a place I used to live. No emotion, no panic, just a plan. Everything I took, I had paid for. My grandfather's watch, my books, the desk I built with my own hands, a few clothes, my files, a half-used bottle of cologne I liked. I didn't touch her things. I didn't break anything. I didn't leave rage scattered on the floor. But I did leave a note. Not a letter. Not a goodbye. Just a single piece of paper, folded neatly, placed on the kitchen counter where she always dumped her keys. Inside, in my cleanest handwriting, I wrote one sentence. Nothing more. You didn't just lose me. You gave me away. No threats. No explanations. No list of what I knew. I wanted her to feel the weight of those words without any context to soften the blow. I wanted her to walk in, set her phone down, open that paper with casual fingers, and then feel the floor tilt. I left the ring box beside it. The one she threw across the room during our second big fight, and later pretended to have misplaced. I found it at the back of her sock drawer while packing. The ring was still inside, untouched, just sitting there like a relic from a life she'd already abandoned. I turned off the lights as I left, locked the door, dropped the key through the mail slot. I didn't even look back. A few hours later, I turned my phone on. 37 missed calls, 9 voicemails, 12 texts, all from her. They started calm, then confused, then panicked. Where are you? Lyle, this isn't funny. Did something happen? Please come home. Please. Is this about Boston? That one. That was the one that made me sit down. Because it meant she knew. Not just that I was gone, but why. Then the calls started coming in again. I didn't answer. I let her voice fill up the inbox, each message a little more frantic than the last. By the 6th voicemail, she was crying. Not sniffling, full-on gasping, sobbing, begging like she was drowning on dry land. She kept saying, I didn't mean to choose him. I didn't mean to lose you. And that was it, wasn't it? She didn't mean to. But she did. She chose a version of life where I wasn't part of it. She thought I'd always be there, stuck in the background, too soft to ever leave. She miscalculated. I stayed with Everett for another night, just to give her space to marinate in the silence. Let her walk through that quiet, half-empty house with her fake perfume and her phony excuses and see what loyalty looks like after it's been erased. And she still had no idea that I wasn't done. Because this wasn't just going to be an exit. It was going to be a reckoning. The silence must have eaten her alive. I didn't respond to a single message, not one missed call. I gave her nothing, and that was exactly what she feared most, being left alone with herself. No audience, no arguments to twist, just her and the weight of her decisions echoing around the house we used to call home. By Sunday afternoon, the calls stopped. I thought maybe she'd given up. But no, Hallie had just switched tactics. At exactly 4:13 p.m., Everett's buzzer went off. He looked at me from across the living room with this expression that was part confusion, part warning. I already knew who it was. She didn't just want to talk. She wanted to perform. I opened the door before she could buzz a second time. She stood there in a coat she never wore around me, with her hair done and makeup smudged just enough to look like she'd been crying, but still wanted to look good doing it. In her hands, a photo album. Our wedding album. I almost laughed. Can we talk? She asked quietly, like she didn't just spend the past week erasing me piece by piece. I leaned against the doorframe. Didn't invite her in. Didn't move. I brought something, she said, holding the album up like it was a peace offering instead of a collection of frozen memories from a life she'd already burned down. I thought if you saw how happy we were, how real it was, maybe you'd remember why we got married. I stared at her for a long second. You think I forgot? I asked. No, Hallie. I remember everything. Before she could answer, another voice cut in from behind me. You didn't tell him about Arizona, did you? Both of us turned. Julia, the other man's wife, standing in Everett's hallway like some avenging angel, holding her own little folder. Only this time, it wasn't filled with screenshots. It was a printed flight itinerary, one with Hallie's name on it. Round trip to Phoenix. 3 months ago. I looked at Hallie, and in that second, all the color drained from her face. I thought, she stammered. I thought that got deleted. Julia stepped forward. Calm, sharp, merciless. He used my points to book your flight. Thought I wouldn't notice. But you left your name on the check-in screen. Amateurs. I could actually see Hallie's brain collapsing in on itself. She turned back to me, but I didn't need to say anything. She was unraveling all on her own. I didn't even want to go, she blurted out. He said it was a conference, that we'd be around other people. I didn't know it was just. Julia raised an eyebrow. You didn't know it was a 2-night stay in one king bed at a spa resort? Hallie's hands started to shake. She dropped the wedding album. It hit the floor with this sad little thud, pages flopping open to our first dance. You're lying, she whispered, but it wasn't clear who she was talking to. Me, Julia, or herself. No, I said. You were lying. For months. And now you're just watching the truth do what you couldn't stop. She bent down, slowly, almost like her legs were giving out, and picked up the album. But her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She tried one last time. Lyle, please. It's not too late. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll block him. I'll change my number. Just don't let this be the end. But she didn't understand. It already was the end. And the final chapter wasn't going to be about apologies. It was going to be about accountability. She didn't leave right away. After Julia exposed her in the hallway like that, Hallie just stood there, hugging the photo album like it could protect her from the truth. I think in her head, she still believed she could control the story, turn this into some dramatic comeback, like the one she used to watch on her sappy reality shows. She didn't understand that real life doesn't come with background music and makeup artists. Just consequences. Julia left without another word. She didn't need to say anything else. She'd already delivered the final blow, calmly, clinically. After that, it was just me and Hallie in Everett's doorway. She kept whispering my name like it was a password that no longer worked. Lyle, please. I know I ruined everything. But can you honestly tell me none of it mattered? That we didn't matter? I sighed. Not because I didn't care, because I did. God help me, I did for so long. I carried the weight of that marriage on my back while she wandered off and handed her loyalty to someone else. Like it was nothing. But the truth? The part that stung the most? We did matter. We just didn't matter enough to her. I looked her in the eyes and said, Hallie, I spent the last year wondering what I did wrong. I twisted myself into knots trying to be enough for someone who already decided I wasn't. But I'm done bleeding for a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe never did. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I held up a hand. No more promises. No more tears. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. I'm just done. Then I handed her something. A small envelope. Inside were signed divorce papers. Clean. Simple. I'd already talked to a lawyer. All she had to do was sign and walk away. Her hands shook as she held it. So that's it. I nodded. No more shouting. No more begging. You crossed the line. I just finally chose not to follow. She turned and walked away slower than she'd arrived, as if hoping I'd call her back. But I didn't. I stood in that doorway and watched her disappear like a chapter I'd finally finished reading. 3 months later, my life looked nothing like it used to. I got a small apartment on the other side of town. Quiet. Clean. Mine. I went back to painting, something I hadn't done since college. I started therapy. Reconnected with old friends I'd pushed away. I wasn't healed overnight. I had days where I still caught myself looking at the passenger seat and expecting to see her. But those days faded. And one afternoon, at a weekend art class I almost didn't attend, I met someone. Her name's Marin. She's nothing like Hallie. She listens more than she talks. She asks questions. She laughs with her eyes, not just her mouth. We've only just started getting to know each other, and honestly, I'm not rushing it. I'm not desperate to prove anything or to fill some hole someone else left behind. Because I'm not the man I was before. I'm stronger now. Clearer. And I finally know that love isn't supposed to feel like quiet suffering. It's supposed to feel like coming home, not begging someone else to stay.